And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this episode of Global Reiki Webinars. It is December 31st, 2016, and this is our second annual, because we have a calendar ready for 2017, and next year will be our third annual New Year's episode of Global Reiki Webinars. So I'm looking at the chat. It's been going for several minutes of people checking in, saying good morning or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Hi, Tovia. You're my neighbor. Good to see you on here. And good morning, C, and so many other familiar names that we've been connecting and collaborating with through the internet over the last year and a half through the Global Reiki Webinar Project, connecting with our global community. And today, Phyllis Furumoto, the Grandmaster of Usui Shiki Ryoho, one of the original lineage of Reiki, what many of us simply call Reiki around the world. And good morning, Joan Gluck. Good to see you on here. And Phyllis is going to come on in a moment and talk with us about the future of Reiki and also the future in general. And I'm really excited to hear her do that. We have also an announcement to make at the end of this webinar, so please stick around for that. If you are new to Global Reiki Webinars, all the action happens and the community building happens in our Facebook group. It's just called Global Reiki Webinars. It's a closed Facebook group, so go on there, go on Facebook and type in Global Reiki Webinars to the chat and you will find the group. That's where all the discussion happens after these episodes. People share links to watch replays of past episodes, and it's a really sweet community that's been budding for a year and a half. If you have issues, if you're with us live right now, if you have issues with your technology, the best thing to do is refresh your web browser. There's also a button. If you're watching from a computer, there's a button on the bottom of your screen. I don't know exactly what the words are there, but I think there's just one button, and that will sort of reboot what you've got going on in our platform here if you have any issues with your audio or video. And of course, there will be a replay that'll be sent to you tomorrow. And to those of you who are watching the replay and joining us sometime in the future, from the moment now when I'm speaking these words, welcome. We feel your presence here. We're happy to be here with you and to be sharing this global community experience. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Phyllis to come on and tell us about what we've got going here for the next 75 to 90 minutes.
Thanks, Rachel. Happy New Year to everyone. Whenever you celebrate New Year, I'd like to invite all of us to join in sharing Reiki together. If you would put your hands on your own body, usually, or perhaps share Reiki through distant treatment. We'll close our eyes and connect on an energetic level. Thank you very much. It's really sweet. Um, well, I don't know if some of you know this, but for I don't know 8 years or so, I produced a weekly radio show, and toward the end, it wasn't really weekly; it was sort of monthly, or every once in a while. But in this radio show, which was an internet broadcast, and this radio show, I would um, take this time of the year to do a very long meditation for you, and join together in really being together without many words. And we're going to do a little bit of that at the end of this talking time. But when Rachel sent me the questions that came from you, I decided to answer some of them because I felt that this would really allow us to go to another level of thinking. And so I wanted to answer the questions. I'd like to just talk before we go to the questions about this concept called the future. And what does it mean to me? In my experience with Reiki and the lessons that I have learned in treating people with Reiki or living Reiki, future is one of the three periods set apart by us human beings. They are past, present, and future. And the more that I practice Reiki, the more I realize that time is not linear and divided into these little segments of the past, the present, and the future. I realize that time is actually a dimension of the self, and this dimension is occurring all at the same time. So in the early days, I used to think to myself, okay, that was not a good experience. I will put it in a little box and put it in my past and never think about it again. And as I would live my life through Reiki, have Reiki treatments, sometimes have the same experience again, I would realize, oh, I'm living my past experience again. Or my past experience is wanting to teach me something. So as I moved through my Reiki experience, I realized that I was living my past at the present, I'm living my present, and I'm living my future all at the same time. And I got to thinking about why it's so comforting to have time as a linear process. And I believe that it's because then it allows us to think we have control over our past. So, in other words, we can rewrite our past. We could be sure that the closet is definitely locked on some of the memories of the past. We think that we have control over our future, over our present day, and how we are in the world right now. And then we hope by controlling what's in the present that our future will be something that we want. And I have experienced that what Reiki as an energy is asking from me is to give up my priority of having control over my life and and to live our past as if it were our present and be conscious in our present moment so that we don't need or want to relive it or rewrite it, and then be prepared for a future so that everything that happens can be absorbed, can be taken in. Um, you know, I just spent some time in Hawaii, and there are a lot of beaches in Hawaii, and I I had some time to be on the beach, and it's like energy and the happenings of our lives are like the waves. They come, they seem to be regular, but they're really not. And they come across the beach, and sometimes they come very high, and sometimes they pull back a lot. And so this action of past, present, and future feels like it's demonstrated in this action of waves on a beach. Um, when we think about the future of Reiki, the future of Reiki for me is happening right now. And I'm wondering what are the lessons or what are the things that we're concerned about? Because I believe that in addressing these concerns, we also address the future. So I'm going to go now to the questions, some of the questions that were asked when you registered, and I believe that these will serve. So I hope that you can relate to my experiences in Reiki. And if you cannot, I can give you a few examples, but I'd like to save time and not do that and go to the questions themselves. So,
Would you like me to
Rachel.
read the question? Yeah.
Yeah, I would love
Okay.
to.
So I also want to acknowledge that there were over, I need to mute Phyllis for the echo. So there were over about 24 of you who submitted questions in advance, and we don't have time to go over all of them, though they're all really, really good. So I'm just going to go through the ones that Phyllis selected, and the first one that we're answering, that Phyllis is responding to today, came from Pina. And Pina wrote, "Hi Phyllis, always a pleasure to listen to your webinars and all that you have to offer to the Reiki community. I thank you. My question is, do you think that over time we will lose the integrity of Reiki and that it won't be looked upon as a sacred and respected method of healing? Because that is how I feel about Reiki. Firstly, some students that I've encountered are in a hurry to learn and take this as a quick money-making and title-gaining for ego-fulfilling purpose. They're eager to go out and start a practice without acknowledging that Reiki needs to begin with healing the self and understanding their path and purpose first, and allowing the Reiki to be the guiding force. Secondly, I have also had students retake the classes because they feel they were not taught properly. They feel they are missing something. There are many teachers that don't care and do weekend classes in a rush just to make money. What is your view on this? And thank you for your question, Pina.
Great question. So first of all, I believe that the future of Reiki is held in the hands and in the lives of each of us as Reiki students. If we are willing to hold our practice as a sacred method of healing, if we are willing to open ourselves to the lessons that Reiki brings us, then we will be able to strengthen the understanding of Reiki in the public world. Integrity is a really interesting question because I used to have judgments about people who practice Reiki differently than myself. And what I realized is that we're engaged in something that's called a healing art. And for me, it means that everything that's done in this practice then becomes a process of healing. So I can assume or have an idea or maybe even a judgment of why people do things. But I know that each of us as human beings actually do things, and and we think that we're doing our best for ourselves and for the people that we are trying to serve. And in taking that viewpoint, then what I realize is that maybe on the outside, it looks like masters are doing classes very quickly and for money, but uh, it's not my experience that that is actually true for them. I feel like they have other reasons for teaching quickly or for feeling like they can leave things out because they aren't important to them. They don't see their value in the life of the student or in the life of themselves. So I think that even if they were wanting to do a quick money making thing, which I don't relate to because I don't know anybody that makes really a huge amount of money with Reiki. So maybe I'm just innocent. But even if they did, for me, all of these things are about their healing path. So my healing path looks like the one that I live, and their healing path looks like the one that they live. And if we are willing and able to just connect in the common ground that we are all passionate about the practice of Reiki, whatever form it looks like and it takes, then we're able to hold both the differences of our practices and the similarities and be able to create a community that has diversity. Diversity is a very important thing. In nature, diversity is extremely important. If we don't have diversity, then there's no evolution. And we want Reiki to move and evolve, Reiki the practice. We want Reiki, the Reiki practice, to move and evolve and accompany us as we, as a part of our humanity, changes and develops. I'm not talking about the form. I'm actually talking about the understanding that we have. So I'd like to just go back and give you an example. When I first started teaching Reiki in the 1980s, um, I really concentrated on what I would call now the aspect of healing practice, because that's what I heard from Hawaii Takata. And it wasn't until the beginning of the 1990s that I actually considered Reiki to be a spiritual practice. And I was very much in question of this. So over the last 20 years, this aspect of spiritual practice or spiritual discipline in my own Reiki life has become totally alive. And it's not because it wasn't there before. It's just because I didn't have ears to hear that part. I wasn't developed enough to actually understand that part. So through the first 10 or 12 years of my practice, Reiki healed me enough to understand that there's other aspects of Reiki besides healing headaches. You know, all of us are on this path. And for me, if we can see that that's true in the world, we can use it as a kind of metaphor, because all of our judgments, like about, of course, students are eager to learn because that's the nature of students. And you want to have a student who's eager to learn. And it's our job as masters to be able to give them enough meat, enough substance in this learning process that they are willing to take time and to develop themselves. So, and we can't control other people. So this is the two paradoxes of who we are as masters. So the future hangs for me upon our willingness to open ourselves and to see that everyone has a healing path, and that healing path is unique. And it is up to us to embrace that healing path and to somehow support it, however that is. And for me, feeling the need to reteach because a student feels like they are missing something, maybe what they are missing is actually their own practice. So that's something to really consider, and not always find fault in another master. The more that we are able to respect each other, and the more that we are able to understand that Reiki is a path, then the more we're able to apply that to our worldview. So that's what I needed to say about this question. Thank you.
Great. And thank you, Phyllis.
You're welcome.
The next question comes from Astrid. And Astrid wrote, in my community, more than 90% of the Reiki people consist of women. That worries me, actually, since there is so much work to do. How can we bring Reiki to the male part of our society? I'd be very happy, Phyllis, if you would comment on this. So thank you, Astrid.
Thank you, Astrid. What's interesting for me is that it really depends on some culture. Sorry, on some cultures. For instance, you're from the Netherlands, but when I first went to the Netherlands in the beginning of, like in 1984 or 85, most of the people who practiced Reiki and almost all of the masters at that time were men. And you know, as Reiki has spread out through the families of the Netherlands, of course, there are more women that seem to practice. I don't know about 90%, but definitely there's a majority of women. So I've been asked this question a lot. And one of the big healing movements, I believe, in our humanity is the understanding of women coming back to their own authenticity. And I believe that Reiki is a path for us to find that authenticity as individual women, but also as women in general. You know, women have fought for the vote. They fought to be seen as equal to men in intelligence and in capability and in skill. But still, we struggle, even after all these years. When you look at the statistics of, in the United States anyway, of the salaries and the earning power of men and women are always less by like a significant percent. And it's an interesting process to understand that we are still healing ourselves as individual women, but also as women in general. So I believe that Reiki, that we come to Reiki in order to have a safe environment, and I do quotations on safe. Safe doesn't mean painless, but it does mean not abusive. And I believe that we are healing ourselves. We're living our past. Many women tell me when they receive Reiki that they have had memory of another lifetime being burned at the stake for being a witch, or having some really terrible experience as a woman. And I feel that in living our past, we are healing our past. So let's do this. Let's concentrate on ourselves as women and not be so easily led to blame someone, because um, blame is such a, I don't know, it's kind of a waste of energy somehow, because we are born, like I was born Japanese, and for most of my life I really felt that was a handicap. And what it was just who I was. I wasn't born Caucasian, I wasn't born Afro-American, I wasn't born in Sri Lanka, I was born in the United States. All of these things are just so. And what's true is that the humanity as a whole has gone through this process of switching from patriarchal to matriarchal societies. And we're in a flow where that's becoming, I believe that we are really on the brink of creating something new. And I would like to think that we are not striving to become a matriarchal society, because it means then that the men are seen in a different way. What I hope that we are arriving at is a place where all human beings have the right and are supported to be their authentic selves. And this for me is about Reiki. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next question came from Muriel, who wrote, concerning the future of Reiki, I have a question about the different systems. For me, the energy of Reiki is one and unique, and we bring it in ourselves, in our intimacy, in our deeper space. But concerning the technique, I think that we should welcome all the different methods. I am initiated in Usui Shikiryoho, and I follow with respect the teaching that I received. What do you think about the other methods and about the future of Reiki and other systems? Can we imagine one system? I feel a little bit lost with that topic because all the systems talk about the same Reiki energy. So thank you, Muriel, for your question.
Yeah, great question. Well, of course, I was a young student and master when Hawayo Takata died in 1980. And for the first 10 years, I was able to live pretty much in a Reiki world where we all had one form of practice. The people that I knew who did Reiki, taught Reiki, even though we had little squabbles among each other, we all basically taught the same practice. And it was comforting. And when in the 1990s, masters started to really create new forms of practice, this was really hard to figure out what to do with. So a part of me was really offended that people would change the practice that Hawayo Takata gave us, because I felt, who are we to change something? But what I realized in a few years was that as a healing practice, masters needed and desired to make Reiki, the practice of Reiki, their own. And in doing that, they shifted things in order to match their own priorities and their own understanding of Reiki and how it fit into the universe. I still didn't like it, but I understood that this was not a personal affront to Hawayo Takata or even to myself. So once I got over that, I realized, and I've been really studying regenerative developmental process in the last 3 or 4 years, and because of this, what again I realized was that this was a natural development in Reiki that um, in the 1980, for those of us who were not Japanese and weren't acquainted with the people who were left in Japan by Mikao Usui or Tajiro Hayashi as Reiki masters, we only knew the form of practice by Hawayo Takada. So in that monoculture, I realized that people that went to somebody else, like for instance, William Rand, come to me. You know, they didn't share the same priorities, they didn't share the same values, but they found Reiki in a place that they could relate to, that they felt spoke to them. And that happened more and more and more. And now, what I see through regenerative eyes is that if you can imagine all the forms of Reiki in a circle, like a person representing a form in this big circle, um, that the truth of Reiki practice is in the totality of that circle. It's not in one person having the truth, because in our humanness, no one person has the truth. We actually must listen to the voice of the circle. We must be able to see that this person, because they need because money is not of value to them and they have a different way of holding money, to have money be a part of the system as it is for me, would keep them away from practicing Reiki. But they come into Reiki because they are able to make a donation to the master. And in order to do that, then they come and they receive whatever their healing path is with Reiki. And sometimes it comes back around to money. But that is not my business. You know, my business is to create the opportunity for students to come to this particular practice. It is for other masters, for them to stay with the form that they value, and for students to come to them and to understand that we represent a circle of Reiki practice and that this is the future of everything. You know, in a geometric form, hierarchy is seen as a triangle with, like, some people think of me as the lineage bearer of being at the top, but I've never seen myself there, and I was never able to be there, like, mentally, because there were often people who were older than I was, often people who had lots more experience of Reiki than I. So how could I be the world expert? And how could we even have an expert of Reiki? Because Reiki is a personal path. So when I understood that, then I got that, you know, being, you know, the first Reiki master in Iowa, or the first Reiki master in Israel, or the third master that Hawayo Takada initiated, all of those things absolutely don't matter. For me, it's how dedicated are we in our path of Reiki? That's the question for me. And I believe that Rachel and I are engaged in this process to really bring this circle together in our own inimitable fashion, and to be able to and to challenge myself. I can speak for myself, to be sure that what I'm offering you all is something that I've learned and doesn't only apply to my practice, but applies, I believe, to all of us as Reiki students. And, you know, if religions and the religions of the world are starting to do this, despite the terrorism and so on that seems to be happening under the name of religion, I really feel that the world religions are starting to come and sit in a circle together. And this, for me, is really important. Um, in our future, we are a circle. Our bodies are all circular systems. You know, we are born, we live our life, we die, we have our own process after we lose our physical body. We come back around for some of us who believe that we are born again. So cyclical circles. This is, for me, the authentic geometric pattern that we must concentrate more on. So I would not want one form of practice. Uh, that's like the Catholic Church saying we are the only way to God, and obviously it's not true. um, Obviously, I feel like I've found God through Reiki, and it doesn't mean that I don't um, support Catholicism. I do, and I really enjoy actually going to Mass, although I'm not a Catholic, so I can't take communion. But I love the ritual, and I love the presence of the priest, and I love all of that. And it awakens something in me that is about a circle. It's like all these circles coming back together. So um, if we can hold this process in our Reiki community, then we are able to be have more capacity to hold the other circles that are happening in the world, and to understand, for instance, that war is something that's also cyclical, that war is like death, and it because it comes from separation. It comes from human beings being able to separate themselves so much from their humanity that they're willing to kill another human being. And it is the healing of these circles that's going to bring us to something that we might call world peace. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So that was very cool. Also, because Phyllis, I don't know if you saw, but there was actually, while you were speaking, there was some chat that came in that was like right in line with what you were saying, but almost like right before you said it. So that was really beautiful of our collective alignment. The next question is from Francis. And Francis wrote, I am a Reiki master teacher. What is one of the best pieces of advice you can give me to pass on to my future students? Thanks, Francis.
Well, that these little sayings that I remember from my being with Hawaii Takata has not been surpassed in all of my experience. And they're full of wisdom, and they're also full of potential. So she would say at the end of a class, let Reiki teach you. And, you know, I've talked about this before, this little sentence. And at first, I thought, oh, how could Reiki teach me? Reiki is an energy. I mean, I'm used to teachers having a ruler and kind of being able to force knowledge into me, into my head. And what I realized is that Reiki teaches me by presenting situations and people in my life that I need to respond to. And do I respond out of habit, which is a reaction from my past, or do I respond from the present, taking them totally as they are in this moment and knowing, oh, this person reminds me of someone, but I'm not going to let that interfere with my relationship with this person right now. I will have my own experience. And it allows me to open to the future. So um, that was the first uh, way that I took this let Reiki teach you. And lately, what I've realized is that the big word for me is let. So it means it means I have to let Reiki teach me. I have to be willing. I have to be open. I have to be able to have the capacity to say, okay, this is a really difficult situation. I don't like it, but what is Reiki teaching me? What am I to learn in this moment? And I feel like this is a great attitude to have if you're a student.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phyllis. We have our next question from Joan, who's actually a cousin of mine that I've never met, but we've connected here through Reiki, and that's really cool. And Joan's question is, do you foresee the Reiki community having a major effect on world peace, eliminating violence and wars, reducing greedy struggles for power, and creating loving harmony between all people? If so, how would this be achieved? And how can we all help bring this about? Thanks, Joan. And
Thanks, Joan.
Phyllis.
Let's see. About in 1982 or something, I was attending these very large group experiences called the EST training, EST. And most of you who are under 40 probably have never heard of the EST training. But it was in my day one of the big places where people went for transformational experiences. It was not a very pleasant experience sometimes for people, but it really shattered their illusion of what the world was about. And it allowed me to see how much I lived in my past. For instance, I realized that automobile accident where the driver of the car, who was one of my best friends at the age of 16, she died instantly, and her brother was in the car. So when I actually learned how to drive, because I was 15 at the time, and all through my 20s, I would only have cars that had 2 seats in the car. And I would not, I felt totally uncomfortable about taking more than 2 people, another person, in the car with me. And I realized during the S training that this was because of this experience I had had when I was 15 in this automobile accident. And that, you know, if I had more than another person in the car, then their life would be in danger, basically. And this is what I mean by us living our past in the present. And so, you know, I went through a process with that and opened myself to the pain of what happened during that time. And in doing that, I was able to allow other people to ride with me in the car. And now I'm, you know, I'm always driving people around, uh, and with great comfort. But that thing is still in the back of my mind, which is interesting sometimes. So, um, when I was in the S training, what they asked me at the other time was, well, what is world peace? What is it that it's going to look like? And how real is that in your estimation of human beings? So I ask you that today. What is world peace for you? What does that look like? And I'm going to do a little meditation, and we're going to go to that place and imagine it. And are we, um, I've always been told that I was an idealist, and that my ideal of a utopia would be something that was unrealistic. So if I see that everybody on the planet is working out their own healing path with or without the assistance of conscious connection to Reiki, then I don't have to get involved in trying to control them or trying to judge them or blame them for something. I can all I can just see that this is their path that they need to walk, and that I need to walk my own path, and to find the strength to be able to hold the righteousness of their path, which is really different, and to go on with my own path without feeling um, influenced by them. And I wonder if that's how we will create world peace. Um, I have beautiful relationships with people, and some of those relationships are really easy. We have the same values, we like the same colors, we like the same level of tidiness. It's like we're really compatible. And then there are other relationships that seem to be so challenging and um, so difficult and so painful. And some of those are with Reiki students that I have. Some of them, one of them was with my own mother, and at the end of her life, and at the end now of my own living here on the earth, um, well, I have more living to do, but not as much as I did 30 years ago. Um, I realized that that was also a beautiful relationship. Even though it was extremely painful, it was extremely challenging, but without that challenge, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And I've learned how to embrace that only in the last 5 years or so. So, what really is world peace? And I believe that we in the Reiki community, when we're able to sit in a circle and see that we are all equal in value. It doesn't mean that we have the same gifts. It means that we are all equal as human beings. When we can sit together with these different forms of Reiki and not point a finger and say, oh, you're cheap Reiki, or you're this kind of Reiki, or you're that kind of Reiki, when we cannot do that, then I believe that this community, because it numbers in the millions now, will have an energetic influence on the rest of the world, and how it also handles conflict and also handles people who don't walk the same path. So, how can we help bring this about? By being very dedicated to our Reiki practice and being able to um, increase our view of community and understand that living together is a lot of work. And it's work in the spiritual sense because it demands of us to see the spirit in every human being. And it's a challenge. So I think that we will be talking more and more about this in the days to come. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Phyllis. And we have one more question in the chat, though, or one more question from the advance, submitted in advance. And we also have a number of comments on the chat. It looks like many people are responding to what you've been saying throughout this webinar, and also a lot of follow-up questions that I don't think we have time to answer today, but can definitely bring these conversations to the Global Reiki Webinars Facebook group. Like, can we have a world without war? And is there war so we can understand and enjoy peace? I think these are great questions and things that I would love to see some conversation threads on in the Facebook group. So please bring the conversation there. It doesn't stop when this recording does. The final question that came in advance is more of a thought. It came from Lauren, and Lauren said, great thought. If all Reiki masters could heal the whole Mother Earth at the same time. So let's hear Phyllis's response to that.
Lauren, I assume that you meant that if all the Reiki masters in the world could send Reiki to Mother Earth at the same time. And it would be an interesting process and probably highly unlikely that we could do it. However, what we can do is, and this takes a little bit of a different turn. I believe that we are Mother Earth. That, you know, as we grow closer and closer to understanding our humanity, we also understand that we are a part of the whole process and system of Mother Earth, that we are one of its creatures, and we are not in control of what is happening. And if we can find our authentic place as a human being in this circle, in this cyclical process of nature, then I think we would be much better off and the world would be a bit more peaceful. So I feel that it is a step toward healing Mother Earth if we can, not just Reiki masters, but all Reiki students, understand that we are the earth. Come from the earth, we go back to the earth, and while we're here, what's important is to have a respectful relationship with the earth and all of its creatures and all of its plants and different communities. And one of the things that I'm doing now, just in the last few years, is trying to change my very fundamental understanding of my relationship to the earth and see that I don't really have a relationship with the earth, because that means we're separated. I am the earth. And if I can somehow live this, I just know my life will be transformed. And that's what I'm preparing for when I do Reiki. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next piece is also a bit of an announcement, and I I'm really excited about sharing this with the global community, and Phyllis's discussion about, we are sacred earth is a theme that we as a community and throughout our public programs that we'll be offering over 2017, we'll be focusing and building on this theme that we are sacred earth. We inhale because the rest of earth exhales, and breathe in the particles and are physically, materially one. And I know in my experience with Reiki practice, there's a non-physical conception, understanding that has developed within me, of that oneness, of actually being earth, being of earth, and it's really exciting. And something that's happened since the Global Reiki webinar project started a year and a half ago is we've really developed this really beautiful community and have begun to engage globally. It began initially with a number of people who've had the privilege of meeting and studying with Phyllis in person through her travels over the last few decades, but really other local Reiki communities in other parts of the world have found these webinars and come in. I wrote on a little post-it note today on this webinar, and also the majority of the people who engage in these webinars do so after the live broadcast. So many of you, if you're watching the replay, you're not the only one. If you found us on YouTube, you're not alone. There are thousands of other Reiki people who are with us in that way. But in this small portion of community who are with us live, we've got representation from Serbia, Jerusalem, Russia, the Netherlands, Norway, Germany, Ukraine, Canada, Paris, Colorado, New York, the UK, Kazakhstan, Utah, Maryland, Kentucky, Spain, Japan, Florida, Texas, Denmark, and Saudi Arabia, and Alabama. And it's just so exciting. And part of my dream, and a dream that Phyllis and I share, and that many people from the community have written in and talked about, is the possibility of many members of this community from all over the planet, from all over the sacred earth, to come together in person, in body, for a retreat, for an exploration of the topic of, we are sacred earth, and also just exploration and community in general. So for those of you who are on live, I've just put up I'm putting up a link that you should see in your chat, that will take you to an information page about what we're calling the first Global Reiki Community Gathering. And our theme for 2017 is We Are Sacred Earth. So it's an opportunity to come together. I see our friend Amal, so excited, and yeah, so many of us are excited. It's what we've done is we've made a reservation. We've reserved an entire camp, an entire retreat center at the retreat center is called Renora Lodge. It's in Michigan, 2 hours from Chicago. So for those of you coming from outside of the US who would be flying, I think that there are smaller airports in Michigan, but there's the biggest airport that's nearby is Chicago. It's a 2-hour drive from where we'll be, and the camp is just beautiful. It's used by different groups and spiritual teachers, and has been continuously for a couple hundred years, and it's really just really sacred land, and all earth is sacred, and we're of it. And Renora is just like the best place to be, to have this experience and come together and have have this cool thing. So so Phyllis put together a page that's in that link that I just displayed for you, where you can click and read through all the information. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll put that URL in the description. So scroll down, look for the info, and you'll be able to click there. Registration is now officially open. From that event page, you'll be able to click to see the registration form. And what in our discussion, something that was really important for us is we recognize that many people from our global community are going to be flying internationally and going through the effort, investing the energy of themselves, as well as financial resources and the resources of time to get here. And so it was important for us to keep the investment for the retreat as low as possible. And so where it's at is it's $500, and it's all inclusive. So that includes meals as well as lodging for 3 nights. And we've made an option. If you're hearing this and you know, like, yes, I will be there, I will do what it takes to get there, we've made an option today where you could register and pay a deposit of $150 with the remaining balance due in the late spring before the event, which is June 22nd to 25th. And yeah, so excited about that. And Tatiana is asking if it's possible to do somewhere in Europe too. And my response to that is, this is our first time doing it, and so it's nearby, where at a place where we're familiar, where I'm familiar. It's a retreat center that I've led groups at over the last few years. And we'll see, the way that we have it, we've got the entire camp reserved. So we have the capacity to have a really big event, like a festival sort of experience. If everyone wants to come, well, I don't know if we could accommodate everyone, but we could accommodate a lot of the community. And if it ends up being small, then we'll modify our contract with the retreat center, and it'll be, a more intimate retreat. But I'm imagining a big thing, and I have a little time, so I actually want to share a story of sort of how I got in touch with Phyllis and in the first place, and how this event came about in the story of my journey with Reiki, which is sort of interesting. It's in this moment I'm feeling the no separation between past and future and this present moment. And the story, I suppose, starts in the past, but I'm feeling it so relevant and present right now. But I would say in maybe 2011 or 2012, a dear friend of mine whose name is Jack, we had both just become Reiki masters. We'd both just been initiated, and we're so excited. And at that point, neither of us had a public practice. Neither of us really knew what our Reiki path was going to unfold or be. And I remember he came over to my place one day, and he was so excited, and he said, Ray, he was like, I had a dream last night, and there was this big Reiki festival, and there were Reiki people from all over the world, and we were there, and we were involved in organizing it, and it was so cool, and we were really excited about this. But it was really, in that moment, it felt like just a floating cloud, a floating dream. Like, how would that actually come to be? And then, maybe a year later, I started looking up other events like that existed, and I came across what appeared to be a beautiful event in the Pacific Northwest that was a regional Reiki gathering. And I saw that Phyllis Furumoto was the keynote speaker. And so I got really excited, because I didn't know, I knew that Phyllis was I knew who Phyllis was, but I wasn't aware that she was teaching and that I could, learn from her or potentially work with her. And so I sent an email through her website and said, I'd like to put on a Midwest Reiki gathering and a regional gathering. And would you be willing to come and be a keynote speaker or a presenter? And she was very open and receptive to talking with me and working with me. And at that time, she had her calendar booked out more than a year in advance. And that was, at that time in my life, it was difficult to imagine what was happening a month from the present moment. And so I actually felt very disappointed in that moment. It felt like, oh, a year and a half from now that doesn't exist. And, and so I just went back and, was, building my own practice, recognized that, for me, while Reiki is my primary modality, as far as my public offering in the world and my capital G, capital W, great work, involved teachings that have come to me through my practice with Reiki, but are not directly Reiki. And so I started acquiring the skills to be able to put that work into the world, which involved learning how to do things on the internet and put on webinars and build community online. And sometime, during that, while I was in that intense learning process, I saw Phyllis make a public Facebook post that said she was wanting to lead webinars and teach online and travel less and reach, people all over the world at once. And so I responded to a Facebook post and said, I don't know if you remember me, was how I felt when I wrote it. I don't know, Phyllis, if you remember me, but I can help with that. And so we did one webinar, and then we did a few more webinars, and now we're moving into our third calendar year of webinars and have this live event. And I'm so excited and appreciate you staying and listening to that story. This is an exciting day, and I love you. I love everyone who's watching this, and really look forward to giving you a big hug on the land up at Renora and getting to know you. We'll be sending out information about the gathering, in the weeks ahead, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have through email or in the Facebook group. So, yeah. I see Ellen invited me to come to the Northwest Reiki gathering. I'd love to. I love the Pacific Northwest, and it looked like a great event, what I read online. I'm so excited now to move on to the final portion of our program today, which is the meditation that Phyllis is going to lead us in. So, yay, virtual hugs to all of you as well. And here's Phyllis for our meditation.
Hello, everyone. Back again. Well, one of the things I just like to say about the gathering that we're excited about doing and meeting with you, excuse me, is that there are many gatherings and festivals that are international in the sense that there are people from more than one country. There's been a German student gathering in Gersfeld, Germany, near Frankfurt, for, I don't know, 20 some years. There's been the Breitenbush gathering in the Northwest. There's been Dutch gatherings, was once a year, and now they're about every 2 or 3 years. One of the things that, and there are many gatherings in Russia and Kazakhstan and so on. And one of the things that I believe this particular group has that the others don't is that we somehow have connection by being together, ours, which is an amazing connection. When I first thought about doing a webinar, I thought that I wouldn't really feel connected with you, but I do. And even through chat, which is not even by your hearing your voice. But when we do the paid for view webinars, one of the things that happens is I get to really have conversation with you. And now there are people who are signing up for more than one of those kind of webinars. So we're actually getting to know these people who come, more than once. So it's really a beautiful thing. And I used to make fun of people who met their new partners by the internet, but I see that that connection can happen. And there's nothing like being in person. So we're really excited about being able to hug you for real.
Mhm.
So see you in June. And, if you feel like financially this is above and beyond your means, I really encourage you to use again this idea of a circle. You would be coming as a representative, possibly, of your community. So ask your community if they would be able to support you in coming financially, or do a fundraising thing on the internet. And it's amazing what happens, really, because these kinds of things um, are life changing. So we hope that we will see many of you in Renora. Great. Okay. Let's just take some time to close our eyes, go into our inner self. I like closing my eyes because I sometimes get distracted by what's out there and connect with what's inside better. Please place your hands over your heart, over your chest area. In my practice, we actually touch ourselves, but you don't have to. You can do this just by hovering as well. And though in Reiki, we know that Reiki will go where it's needed, this area, our chest area, around our heart, often feels the most vulnerable, the most fragile, the most in need of protection. And one of the things that I've been really cognizant of for many years is that the best protection is to be vulnerable. Because when we are open, we are one with Reiki, one with each other, one with the earth. Let's take a deep breath. and another. And allow the sensation of this energy to fill our entire being. And allow the sensation to expand, to move outside of your skin into your being, the unseen part of you. And allow it just to expand and expand. We are not limited. We radiate energy like the sun. And that energy goes for miles and miles, connecting, touching someone else. And we are one. And now slowly holding the space, allow your hands to move away from your physical body and open your arms. Embracing the earth, embracing each other, embracing all of who we are, all of our past, all of our future, all of the now. And as we move into this next calendar year, as we move into the deep winter or the deep summer, let us embrace what comes to us in that season. Now move your hands slowly together until they come together, palms together. Staying open, staying soft and vulnerable, staying in this oneness as much as we can do for now. Slowly open your eyes, keeping your vision soft. I want to thank you for joining me on my path this year, for stimulating me, for challenging me, and for receiving me. And I look forward to another year ahead of us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Phyllis. That was so great. And thank you, wherever you are in the world, joining us. This has been a really beautiful hour and a half together, and I look forward to many more, to deeper engagement and relationship building and community building with you in the weeks and months and years ahead. So until next time, peace, love, and Reiki. Bye for now.